The dawn had barely broken in Savannah when Lori, with her brown eyes already marked by life at the age of 10, crept down the worn hallway of her home. The walls seemed to whisper the secrets of a happier past, but now they only echoed with the sounds of shouts and sobs. Her father, Robert, a man once full of dreams and laughter, was now frequently slouched on an old sofa, his figure shrouded in alcohol fumes. Beside him, Brenda, the imposing figure of an abusive girlfriend, cast contemptuous glances that cut deeper than any words. "Robert, shut up, Lori. It's none of your business," Brenda snarled, giving a venomous look to the timid girl who had only asked about breakfast. Robert, his voice trembling from the drink, only mumbled in agreement, his shaky hands seeking the comfort of the bottle. On that morning, the atmosphere was particularly charged. A heated argument had erupted, and violence soon followed. Lori, huddled in a corner, watched every harsh word, every abrupt gesture, every scornful look, until a sound, the loud slap, broke the fragile silence that had followed the verbal storm. A red mark bloomed on Lori's cheek, inflicted by Brenda, and something within her stirred as well, the determination to escape. She waited, her heart beating wildly, until the heavy snoring of her father and Brenda's grumbling filled the house. Then, with hands trembling not from fear but from urgency, Lori grabbed her small blue backpack, the one that held her most precious treasures, a fairy tale book that had once belonged to her mother, a faded photo of happier times, and the stuffed teddy bear that had been her silent confidant during the long, lonely nights. She slipped out of the house, the sunrise painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, promising a new beginning. She didn't look back, not even when the door closed with a surprisingly final click, not even when her small feet met the cool gravel path. With each step, she distanced herself from the house that had never been a home since Brenda's arrival, and every breath was a silent farewell to the pain and fear. Lori didn't know where she was going, but she knew that anywhere was better than where she had been. While the city slept, a 10-year-old girl carried on her shoulders the courage that many adults never find, and in her heart, the fragile glow of hope. And you, would you have the same courage as Lori? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Lori Martin walked through the empty streets of Savannah, her small steps echoing against the silence of the night, giving way to dawn. Her heart beat at a fast pace, a mixture of fear and anticipation, as her eyes scanned every corner in search of refuge. The abandoned house stood at the curve of the road, its outlines darkened against the slowly brightening sky. With broken windows and a door hanging from just one hinge, it appeared as a specter of desolation from the outside. Lori hesitated for a moment, but the cold wind that blew ruthlessly, poking through the gaps in her thin coat, encouraged her to proceed. "It can't be as bad as it looks," she murmured to herself, trying to infuse courage into her words as she pushed the creaky door with a timid push. Surprise awaited her inside the house. What had appeared as a forgotten shell from the outside revealed itself as an unlikely sanctuary. Within, the floor was covered in faded rugs that muffled her footsteps, and furniture covered in white sheets, like ghosts of a former life, seemed to invite her to rest. Who would have left all this here? Lori wondered aloud, her words breaking the silence as if calling the attention of the ghosts of the place. With trembling fingers, she removed one of the sheets, revealing a sofa that seemed to swallow the dust of time. She sat down and allowed herself to close her eyes for a moment, comforted by the soothing silence the house offered. The dawn light gently filtered in, casting golden beams that danced in the suspended dust in the air. The rays illuminated the walls, peeling them of their secrets, and Lori could see hand-drawn sketches covering the faded wallpaper, ships in stormy seas, castles in clouds, and creatures smiling at her from a world only imagination could reach. "You seem like a good place to start anew," she said to the house, her voice small but full of determination. In that moment, Lori realized that, though alone, she was far from being helpless. The house, with its secrets and its silent history, became a quiet companion. There, amid loneliness and abandonment, Lori found a strange sense of belonging and peace, promising herself that as long as the walls of that house stood, she had a home, a sanctuary against the outside world and its ghosts. Her father, upon noticing that his daughter had disappeared, chose not to search. As for him, he had rid himself of a burden. The dawn tinted the sky in shades of pink and orange as Lori, though tired, rose from the old couch that had served as her bed. The house, bathed in the soft morning light, seemed less intimidating and more an invitation to explore. With a spirit that the fear of the night had failed to extinguish, she began to wander through the rooms, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The kitchen displayed shelves filled with empty cans and long-evaporated spice jars. Someone liked to cook here, Lori mumbled, imagining the meals that had been prepared. In the corner, haphazardly stacked were cardboard boxes, remnants of forgotten moves or provisions never used. These boxes, they might be worth something in recycling, Lori thought, already mentally calculating how she could carry them. As she sorted through the boxes, one in particular caught her attention. It was heavier and had tape wrapped around it, sealing it shut. Lori ran her fingers over the tape, feeling curiosity growing inside her. "What are you hiding?" she asked, almost expecting the box to answer. With careful movements, she managed to open a small hole, peeking inside with a cautious glance. What she saw made her heart stop, rows of bank notes neatly arranged, as if waiting to be discovered. This can't be real," Lori whispered, her voice faltering with surprise. She pulled the box further into the light, opening it completely now. The money seemed to shine under the morning sunbeam that entered the house. Lori grabbed a stack, feeling the texture of the bills under her fingers. "There must be a fortune here," she said aloud, her mind spinning with possibilities. For a moment, she felt like the heroine of one of her fairy tales, an ordinary girl stumbling upon a hidden treasure. But the reality of her situation quickly brought her back to earth. "I need to be smart about this. I can't let them find me," she thought, her mind already working on a plan. She knew that money could be the key to a new life, a life far away from the past that haunted her. With her heart beating with renewed hope, Lori began to plot her next move, certain that this discovery would change her destiny forever. The discovery of the money had been a revelation, and the weight of several bills in her pocket was a constant reminder of the surreal reality that Lori now faced. The hunger gnawing at her from within, however, was a more immediate and primal call than any future planning. Lori took the box of money and concealed it very well in that abandoned house, in a hiding place that only she knew, so that she could return whenever she needed. With the crumpled bills in her hand, she left the abandoned house in search of something to eat. She didn't have to walk far. Just ahead, a roadside diner presented itself like a mirage of comfort, its flashing sign promising the best burger in town. Lori approached, drawn by the scent of food that escaped every time the door swung open. The interior of the establishment was far from pristine, the tables were sticky to the touch, and the floor seemed to have gone without a broom for days. Lori, however, hardly noticed the dirt. What caught her attention were the people behind the counter, working at the grill, and the plates of food passing by her full of delicious promises. "What'll it be, sweetie?" the waitress in a stained uniform handed Lori a laminated menu, asking. "Burger, fries, and an apple pie, please," Lori replied, her voice almost a whisper. She felt a strange mix of guilt for spending the money and delightful anticipation for what was to come. When the food arrived, Lori could hardly believe it. The burger was juicy, the fries were crispy, and the pie had a flavor that made her think that maybe there was something good and pure in the world after all. "Is everything to your liking?" the waitress asked, watching the girl devour her meal. Lori nodded, unable to form words. The sensation of ketchup on her lips, the salt of the fries on her tongue, the sweetness of the pie, it was a feast for the senses. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to savor every bite, every chew. That was a moment of comfort, a rare refuge from the chaos and violence that had been her constant companions. The meal was not just nourishment for Lori's tired body, it was a balm for her soul, a sweet pause that said perhaps there was hope for better days. And while she indulged in that simple meal, for the first time in a long while, Lori allowed herself to feel something she had forgotten: gratitude. Gratitude for the shelter, for the unexpected money, and now, for a burger that was much more than just food. It was a sign of new beginnings. The money Lori had found was a small treasure, but she knew she had to use it wisely. With that in mind, she decided that fruits would be a healthy and cost-effective option to supplement her improvised diet. She walked to the local market, a modest place but filled with vibrant colors and aromas that filled the air. As she carefully chose between apples and bananas, Lori didn't immediately notice the elderly couple watching her with kind eyes. They were George and Martha Taylor, well-known figures in the community, owners of easy smiles and generous hearts. George, with his worn straw hat, and Martha, wrapped in a floral apron that had seen better days, approached her with an almost palpable kindness. "Sweetie, you look like you could use a hot meal and some company," Martha said with a sweet but firm voice, offering Lori a shiny apple she had just picked. Lori looked at them uncertain, not accustomed to such selfless kindness. I'm okay," she began, but the hesitation in her voice betrayed her true condition. "We live just over there. We have plenty of room and food. Why don't you come with us, just for a while, until you figure things out?" George offered, extending his calloused hand, a silent promise of safety. Lori pondered for a moment, looking at the kind faces before her. A part of her screamed to be cautious, not to trust strangers, but another part, a part she didn't know existed until that moment, was tempted to accept the offer. "I don't want to be a bother," she began, but was interrupted by Martha. "Darling, you wouldn't be a bother. It would be a pleasure to have your company," Martha reassured, taking Lori's hand with a grip that spoke of care and protection. Lori felt something unravel inside her, a tension she didn't even know she had been carrying. Looking at those two strangers who seemed so sincere and kind, she felt a twinge of hope. "Okay," she finally said, "I accept." And with those words, Lori allowed herself to be guided out of the market and into the life of George and Martha, who, unbeknownst to her, would become much more than just a kind elderly couple. They would become her family, her safe haven, and the bridge to a future she had never dared to imagine. In George and Martha's home, Lori decided to open up and told them about her drunken father and his abusive girlfriend. She explained that she had run away with some money to feed herself until she could get on her feet, but Lori didn't mention the abandoned house or the box of money. Lori felt at ease in that house, and time seemed to move at a different pace. The dawn brought with it the smell of Martha's homemade bread and the soft whistle of the kettle that George put on the stove. Life here was a mosaic of peaceful moments and gentle routines, a complete contrast to the whirlwind of chaos and uncertainty that Lori knew so well. Each day unfolded with comforting predictability. Meals were punctuated by conversations about life's small pleasures. Afternoons were spent in Martha's garden, attending to her roses, or in George's workshop, where he skillfully turned pieces of wood into delicate toys and sturdy furniture. "You know, Lori," Martha would say as they shared an afternoon snack, "we always wanted to have children, but life had other plans for us. Now, it seems like it sent you to us." And George, with a nod and a warm smile, would add, "We're here for you, dear. There's nothing in this world that can take you away from us now." Lori felt the weight of those words, the weight of the love they offered her so freely. She wanted to fully embrace this new life, but the fear that her father might show up and shatter this newfound peace always lurked in the corners of her mind. At night, when the house settled into a soft silence and shadows danced on the walls of her room, Lori would curl up under the covers, snug and safe, but alert to any noise that might be her past returning. "Are you okay, dear?" Martha would ask, noticing the shadow of concern that sometimes crossed Lori's face. "I'm just getting used to all of this," Lori would reply, her gaze drifting to the window as if expecting to see her father's silhouette in the moonlight. "We won't let anything bad happen to you," George would say, appearing in the doorway with his determined and protective look. "You're part of our family now." Lori would smile, allowing the security and affection they provided to warm her heart. In that home, with that couple who loved her as if she were their own granddaughter, Lori found her refuge, her stronghold against the storms of the outside world. And with each passing day, the fear of her father's return began to dissolve, replaced by the strength and stability of unconditional love. Lori decided to stay there and form a beautiful family with George and Martha. One day, Lori returned to the abandoned house and took all the money, placing it in a shoebox and returning to her new home. In search of a new hiding place, she kept the secret of the money like a solitary guardian of a treasure, hidden in the shoebox under a loose floorboard in her room. The amount found in the abandoned house seemed to burn with the promise of freedom and the danger of unwanted revelations. She feared that by revealing the existence of that fortune, she might somehow tarnish the purity of her relationship with George and Martha or, worse, bring harm upon them. Over time, the money became just a detail in her life as she focused on something she saw as much more valuable, her education. Every day, she devoted herself fervently to her studies. Each turned page was a step away from the shadows of her past. George and Martha watched in admiration as Lori transformed. "This girl is going places," Martha would murmur with pride as she watched Lori surrounded by books at the kitchen table. "You are a little star, Lori," George would say, his eyes shining with a mix of affection and a glimpse of pain for the daughter they never had. Lori, in turn, found solace in the local library, an old building with shelves reaching the ceiling and creaky escalators under her feet. It was there, amid stacks of classic literature and scientific treatises, that she let the hours dissolve. "You're here again, Lori," the librarian, Mrs. Ellington, would ask with a smile, handing a bookmark to the young reader. "Yes, I'm trying to finish War and Peace. It's a challenge, but I'm almost there," Lori would respond, her eyes gleaming with the determination that had accompanied her since that first lonely night in the abandoned house. Each new piece of knowledge acquired was an armor against the past. Each praise from her teachers was an affirmation of her worth. Lori knew that books not only educated her, but also protected her, creating a wall between her and the memories of a broken home. And as she grew both in age and intellect, she became an exceptional young woman, ready to face the world with her head held high, armed with the knowledge and wisdom her studies had provided her. Years passed, and George and Martha decided to try to officially adopt Lori since her father had never come looking for her. But adoption is a very bureaucratic and time-consuming process, and time went by. On the day Lori turned 18, the air was filled with new hope. She sat at the dinner table with George and Martha, a stack of legal documents attesting to her new reality spread out in front of her. The adoption had been finalized, and she was now officially part of the family. Feeling the weight and joy of belonging, Lori began, "I never imagined, Lori," her voice trembling with emotion. "I never thought I'd have a family again, a last name that meant something." Martha ran her hand along Lori's back, a maternal gesture that spoke volumes. "You've always been a tailor to us, dear, since the day you entered our lives." And George, with his tranquil smile, added, "And now it's official. What do you want to do next, our girl?" It was the opportunity Lori had been waiting for, the moment to share the dream that had grown inside her over the years. "I want to study law," she said, looking into their eyes. "I want to help people who are like me, voiceless and hopeless." Martha squeezed Lori's hand. "That's wonderful, Lori. You have such a big heart, and we know you'll make a huge difference in this world." But there was more, and Lori hesitated for just a moment before continuing. "And I want you to know," she said, pulling the old shoebox from under the table, "that I can pay for it." She opened the box, revealing the money she had kept secret for so long. The couple was stunned, words escaping them as they looked at the amount Lori had hidden. "Lori, what is this?" George asked, his voice low and full of surprise. "I found this years ago in the house where I slept the night I ran away, and the next day I met you," she explained. "And I saved it. Didn't know why at the time, but now I do. I want to use it for my education and to help you who gave me everything." Martha had tears in her eyes, and George covered Lori's hand with his rough and warm one. "You're our blessing, Lori. We'll accept this, but only because we know it's important to you. You've already given us more than any money could." And so, with family ties and gratitude strengthened, Lori began to plan her future at law school, supported by her parents' unconditional love and her own determination to change the world one case at a time. Years had passed since Lori, with the help of George and Martha, earned her degree and became known as Dr. Lori Taylor. Her reputation as a defense attorney was impeccable, and her law firm in Atlanta had become a beacon of justice for those in need. She carried with her not only the knowledge of the law, but also a profound understanding of human frailty and resilience. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, with the steady rhythm of raindrops against the office window, a hesitant figure crossed the front door. The woman, with the marks of a hard life etched on her face and traces of fear in her eyes, seemed out of place in the polished and professional setting of the law firm. "Can I help you?" Lori asked, rising from her desk as she noticed the visitor's hesitation. I need help," the woman whispered, her voice a fragile murmur. "My partner, he's not a good man." As she listened, Lori felt a flash of recognition. The woman's features, despite being worn down by time and suffering, were unmistakably familiar. "Mom," Lori whispered, almost unable to believe it. The woman looked up, meeting Lori's eyes, and in an instant, years of separation and pain dissolved between them. "Lori, my little Lori." It was indeed Lori's biological mother. The last time Lori had seen her, she was just a child, a frightened girl. Now she stood before her mother as a grown woman, a successful attorney. Lori approached, and with a gesture that revealed more of her heart than her legal skills, she took her mother's trembling hands in hers. "I'll help you, Mom. I'll make sure you're safe," Lori promised, her voice firm and determined. She worked tirelessly on the case, offering not only her legal expertise, but also her compassion and understanding. With each petition and every hearing, Lori not only reaffirmed her commitment to justice, but also wove the threads of reconciliation with the woman who had given her life. When they finally secured a restraining order against Anne's abusive partner and began the process of bringing her to a safe place, Lori knew she had done more than her duty as a lawyer. She had initiated the healing process, both for her mother and for herself. And as Anne looked at her daughter now, her savior, she realized that Lori had indeed become Dr. Lori Taylor, a woman of immense strength and generosity of spirit. The years had softened the edges of Anne's turbulent past, and now, free from the vices and suffocating presence of an abusive partner, she found herself sitting across from Lori, her daughter, in an office that was a testament to Lori's triumph over adversity. And held Lori's hands, prominent veins marking the passage of time. "Lori, there are no words that can express how deeply I feel about everything," Anne began, her voice choked with emotion, "for not being there for all the wrong choices. If I could turn back time." Lori raised a hand, a gentle gesture to quiet her mother's confession. "Mom, the past cannot be undone," she said, her voice calm but laden with the depth of understanding. "What matters is the now and what you choose to do from here." And looked at Lori, admiring the woman her little girl had become. "I want to try. I want to be the mother you deserve, even if it's too late for that." "It's not too late," Lori smiled, a smile that spoke of forgiveness and future possibilities. "I've seen the effort you made to change, and that means everything." With teary eyes, Anne nodded, silent gratitude overflowing. "I want to be better, Lori. I'm ready for the help you've offered." And Lori had offered more than words. She had committed to financing her mother's treatment, an investment not only in Anne's health, but also in the possibility of healing both their wounds. Time passed, and Lori never abandoned the family that had welcomed her. She always visited her adoptive parents, George and Martha. She was very grateful for everything the couple had done for her. Years later, on a clear spring day as they walked together in a park, Lori knew it was time to reveal the whole story. "Mom," she began, her heart pounding with anticipation of sharing not only the secret of the money she had found so many years ago, but also every choice and chance she had taken to build the bridge between her past and her present. She also told her about being adopted by George and Martha and how much they had helped her. As Lori spoke, her words wove the narrative of her life, a life marked by challenges, but also by resilient strength and a heart willing to forgive. For Anne, each revelation was a silver thread connecting the lost pieces of her own story to Lori's. And as she listened, she understood that this moment of pure humanity and compassion was the true beginning of their reconciliation. After this revelation, Lori decided to introduce her birth mother to her adoptive parents, and expressed her profound gratitude to the couple for the opportunity and love they had given her daughter. Following this meeting, everyone realized how much they had helped Lori, and they formed a beautiful family, getting to know each other and seeing how love and care are essential in people's lives. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.